Hi there. Welcome to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is Jay Angel. I'm going to be your podcaster. This is a very special podcast. I usually don't podcast on Monday, but I wanted to have this guy on. And he told me he fishes every night of the week, and Thursday night he has tournaments. So here we are, Monday edition, Let's Talk Fishing. And without further ado, I give you Louisiana's own Skip Rayborn. How you doing tonight, Skip?
I'm doing good, man. Doing really good. Excited to get on here and talk about fishing, man. Really excited. That's what I love to do.
And
Almost
you
as
have
much as fishing. Yeah.
you have been having a great year. I mean, I can't say enough about the year you've had.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I've done a lot of traveling earlier in the year in the spring, and it's a circuit that I fish, NBAA, and they have a national championship at the so we fish to get to the national championship. Like say 2024, we fish our championship in the spring of the year after that. So in March of 2025, we fished our championship. It was on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky, and it's a lake I've never been to. It's a highland lake, deep. Um, it was very challenging. You know, I may sound silly for saying it was challenging as well as I did, but it was very challenging. The lake came up 9 feet in the
Nine
seven
feet.
days that I was there.
That's
So it was it was
ridiculous.
it was constantly changing.
So you
And
had
I
to
was a
fish
little
a
I
different
was
lake.
yeah, it was when we got there, you know, it was when we got there, it was really really warm, and it was raining every day, like all day. And then by the time the tournament starts, it got really really cold, really
Oh,
really windy, and post frontal conditions. And from the rain that they had up north of there, it raised the lake level 9 feet. So there's a lot of trash when the lakes come up. When those highland lakes come up like that, there's a lot of floating debris that ends up in the lakes. We were very fortunate
you have
that
rafts
we had the
floating
tournament, that
around.
there were talks about canceling it, but they decided to go ahead with it. We did, and on day one, we were lead. I was leading. I had 18, right at 18 pounds on day one, and I had about a
18
3 pound
pounds on
lead
day one.
on day one. Yeah, so, and
Wow.
smallmouth have to be 18 inches. Largemouth and largemouth were 15, spotted bass were 12, and smallmouth were 18 inches.
Wow.
So I weighed in four largemouth and a smallmouth on day one, and I when I was scouting, I was catching mostly smallmouth. So I knew, because when the tournament actually started, there was a 3 day tournament. We had 5 days to practice. That's when it came up 9 feet, and it kind of leveled out the first day of the tournament, and then it started to fall. So we were literally watching the lake change every day. So from the day that I found those fish, which was the last day of practice, to the first day of the tournament, which was the very next day, I was catching mostly smallmouth. I only caught one smallmouth, and I changed a little bit. Had to change a little bit to catch the fish I caught. So I knew what was going on was constantly changing. It's always changing in the springtime, but when you have fluctuation in water levels like that, it really changes. So, and the it was not as cold day two, and it wasn't as windy on day two, except for the end of the day one. But day two, it got really cold and really really windy. And we'd caught about 11 keepers that day, the first day.
11.
Yeah, the second
Wow.
day, we fished till 11 o'clock in those areas, and we didn't have a fish. We were leading the tournament at 11
I
o'clock. We
wanted
didn't
to
have a
tell you,
fish.
Reed Rayborn checked in.
Yeah, yeah, that's my son. That's my son. He fishes too. Um, but anyway, so during our practice, we had a few other areas that were pretty good, and so they were mostly. I was down by the dam when I caught that 18 pounds on day one. So we ran up the river to a creek about 20 miles up the river, and we got there around noon. And I didn't execute. I should have had a much better day. Just to give you some scale on this lake, there was we got there on a Friday. There was a Saturday tournament and a Sunday, two tournaments, local tournaments with 60 to 80 boat fields. 14 pounds won uh, Saturday and 17 pounds won Sunday. And that was with locals. So what we had on the first day was solid. That was a big stringer for that lake. Um, so we go up the lake, and I really didn't execute that well. I lost some fish, but I ended up with 10 pounds, which doesn't seem like much. But a lot of the people that caught them on day one did not catch them on day two. I was one of them, and it just the lake was changing, and it just you know you in the middle of the tournament, most tournaments are won by what you find during the tournament, especially on multi-day tournaments. You're not going to win on your scout. I know that going in. I mean, you want to, but you never win on just what you scouted. You have to develop something during that time frame of that 3 days, especially in the spring, because it's going to change. So when I caught that 10 pounds, I felt pretty good about going back up there the next day because we kept our lead. I had a 2.5 pound lead going into the final day. So I go up the lake to start, and we catch one spotted bass. The water had fell. It had fell about a foot from day one to day two, or from day two to day three. So we ran back down the lake, back to where I caught the 18 pounds, and we didn't get a bite there. So
Oh,
at around so around 12:30, we decided to go back up the lake and that creek again just to see, because it had start the sun had finally came out. It finally got sunny. We were fishing a little bit shallower. We were fishing a ledge, and it was about 6 to 8 feet deep, that ledge. And um, so I ran back up there. And as soon as we got up there, well, hold on, let me back up. We were on our way up there, and my motor went into guardian mode. I was about a mile
oh
away, and my
no.
motor went into. I had one fish, and my motor went into guardian mode, and it said low oil pressure. So I
Oh,
took the Callan cover and the Callan off. The little trap door on my Mercury. I got a Mercury 4-stroke. I pulled the dipstick, and the oil was full, so it wasn't low on oil. So I called a friend that was a mechanic back home in Louisiana, and he told me it was either the oil sensor or the oil pump was going out. He said to wait about 30 minutes, let everything cool down, and if it's the sensor may have overheated. You may be able to finish the day with it. So I did. I waited about 30 minutes and got on the trolling motor and started trolling. Finally, I decided to try it, and it wasn't beeping. The buzzer wasn't going off. It took me out of guardian mode where I could get to my fish. I get there, and as soon as I got there, we started catching them.
oh, nice.
And soon as we started, I started realizing that here we go. We have an opportunity to win. I called a fellow competitor from South Louisiana, somebody that I trusted that would actually follow me in, or at worst, come get my fish for me and bring them in with my co-angler. I called him, asked him where he was at. Unfortunately, he was on the lower end of the lake. I was on the upper end, but it was Mason Gotro and his father, and they decided to cut their day a little short because they had an earlier weigh in than I had a late weigh in. So they came and got me once I got or they came and met me in the lake and brought me in. Um, I did break down about a mile from the ramp.
Oh,
I was gonna fish around the ramp for I had about 45 minutes left to fish, but considering the boat went down again, I didn't know I had a little headwind at me. I had about a mile and a half to troll. I was worried about making it there in an hour, so I decided to go on in and forfeit the rest of my day. And unfortunately, I came up a pound short. We had 13 pounds on right at 13 pounds on day three, and we needed 14. So we lost by a pound. Unfortunately, we came in second. It was a really good tournament, and I don't want to speculate, but we had to leave those fish while they were biting with an hour left to fish. And I weighed in that 12-inch spotted bass with 13 pounds.
oh no.
So I would think if I had another hour to fish on those fish, I probably would have caught at least a pound because the spotted bass weighed about 3/4 of a pound. So a 2 pound bass and probably would have won that tournament. Then I had another TBF National Championship in Arkansas. I did well there. I didn't do nearly as well as I thought I was going to do or was hoping I was going to do. That had nothing to do with a mechanical issue. That was all based around decision making, and I didn't make the best decisions there. I'm almost positive I was on the winning fish. I found an area that nobody else could get to, and I have to credit my boat for that because there's no other boat that could have made it to where I went than a Gator Tracks, and not because it drafts shallower than any other boat. But if you get in that boat and and I can turn it around in the boat lanes on Toledo Bend going 50 miles an hour and never lose water pressure and never blow out. That
Wow.
thing handles incredible. There's no other boat that handles like it, and it gets up like a jet ski. Also, uh, Bob's hydraulic jack plate. I couldn't have done it without a Bob's hydraulic jack plate. And people could say, "Well, what if you had an Atlas? Wouldn't have made it without with an Atlas. Atlas is too slow. The Bob's is the reaction time on a Bob's because I was running in a less than a foot of water at times,
So
and I had to jack it down and jack it back up really fast to get going, to get up enough momentum and speed to get across those sandbars in that ditch that I was in, and plus I had to jump a beaver dam.
so you had to jump a beaver dam just like your friend jumped the beaver
Keith,
dam
yeah,
out earlier.
that was a little bit of a Keith Poche deal right there. I'd
That is
never
Keith Poche. How Keith Poche of you, man. And
yeah,
man,
I know, yeah.
I'm just saying that
I,
because you guys are
I
fearless. I love it.
Yeah, my co-angler that was with me, he was in the bottom of the boat. I didn't tell him exactly he thought we was running into the shoreline because the ditch was so narrow. I had to hit it going about 60. I
And
mean,
he
it's
was going,
probably a little too dangerous, but I mean, you know, you give you give all your time, all your energy, all your effort into it, and I went in there when I was practicing. It was a little lower when I went in there during the tournament. My mistake was I didn't go there on day one. Um,
okay.
I went to an area that was probably just as good. The difference was other people could get there. Um, when I got there, there was a boat already in there, and I had an opportunity that day to make a decision to go ahead and go in there. But I had a kind of a bigger guy with me, and I wanted to be light. So I made a decision to go fish some different areas. Ended up with 11 pounds. It kept me in the tournament. Um, I think I was 14th overall. You got to win your division. I was third in my division. I was down 3 pounds. I think the guy that was leading it had 14. I had 11. Day two, I decided to go for it, and it was even lower that day. So I know I could have made it on day one. I went in there and fished till 9:30 and caught 18 pounds by 9:30.
Wow.
And they were just starting to pull up on the beds. The last one I caught was a 5 pounder on a bed. And as I was trolling out, I seen other fish on beds, but I mean, there was I had some markings in there that let me know where the water was when I got there, and it
Yeah.
was falling.
Oh
Um,
no.
the worst thing about it was, I I had 28 pounds, almost 29 pounds in 2 days on the Arkansas River. It was in Lake Dardanelle in Arkansas, which is a good weight. I mean, it's not, normally around 17 a day is what 17 to 20 a day in that, in springtime. But we had a lot of weather there also. I mean, it rained and I thought the water was going to come up, but they kept sucking it out every evening.
Yep.
So, I got held on. It was a pretty rough tournament, but I know that area that I was in, there was other people that tried to get there and they couldn't. And like I said, that credit that, I could have really, I feel terrible because, my best friend owns Gator Tracks boats and he's helped me a lot over the years. I would have loved to have won that tournament for him and his business
Yeah.
because there's no other, there was plenty of people that tried. There was plenty of people that tried to get in that area. That area was well known. The water was just too low for people to get there. And, but that Gator Tracks made it. It made it. And it made it because of the way it handles. And when I say that, the shallowest area in there was a tight S curve. And when I'm talking about shallow, it was 3 to 6 inches deep. So I had to
Ooh,
have enough momentum and carry enough momentum to make it through that S curve. And it turned with me having it jacked all the way up and still be
man,
able to bite, not lose pressure, not get hung. Because one false move
swear to
and my tournament's
God,
over.
man, you and Keith are fearless, dude.
Yeah, well, I had to I had to run through a bunch of pool dew or coots, whatever you want to call them. We call them
Yep.
coots in South Louisiana, and I
Yeah.
had five of them. I had five of them in the boat with me whenever we stopped. So it was yeah. I did knock my skag off. I had a little bit of damage. I tore up two props. I
Yeah.
tore up a
Well,
prop going in practice, and I tore up another prop going during the tournament. And the
at
bad
least
thing
you didn't.
about it, the
Yeah.
worst thing about the whole tournament was is I was a pound and I actually had enough weight to make it to the finals. I just didn't win my division.
Yeah.
The bad thing about it is all I would have needed to have won that tournament was 14 pounds because they didn't catch him on day three because the lake came up a foot and a half and I could have got in there easily and I'm pretty sure I would have won that tournament. But hey, I mean, look, I finished eighth. I
Yeah.
made a lot of money this spring. Last fall I won the state championship in Texas. So I mean,
That's
the biggest bass tournament, the two biggest local bass tournaments in the state of Louisiana, the Tiffany Thomas Memorial, which is out of Manchac. I came in second there, and then the Veterans Memorial, and you can see my band. I got it. We support our veterans. There's a huge veterans tournament for wounded warriors,
as a veteran. I
veterans.
thank you.
Yeah,
I thank
and
you. Yeah.
you're welcome. Um, um, there's a 150 boat field that goes out of Dry Rines in Morgan City, and I came in third in
Yep.
that one. I know it's not a bunch of seconds and thirds and stuff like that, but man, these tournaments are really hard to win. You can't have
Man.
mechanical issues. You can't make any you know, bad decisions. Any bad decision, the tournament's over with, and you got to execute. And I can say this on each and every day during those tournaments that I fished. I didn't do that every day. Some of it was my fault. Some of it was equipment's fault. Some of it was the fish's fault, just bad luck for fish getting off.
Well,
Day one in Arkansas, I lost a 4 pounder right at the boat. I didn't do anything wrong. It just came off,
yeah.
which would have put
Yep.
me in the
Sometimes
finals.
they come on.
Yeah, it's just,
Skip, I'd like to ask you a question.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So day one, Cumberland, you had 18 pounds. What did you do that everybody else didn't do that put you 3 pounds ahead of the rest of the pack?
Well, naturally, I'm from South Louisiana, so the first thing I tried to do was make the shallow bite work, and it didn't. I mean, I tried, and it just didn't work at all. So I decided after 2 days of trying to make the shallow bite work, I got back home and I got on Google Earth. And I started looking down around the dam because the only water that was clean was around the dam. Like you got about 5 miles away from the dam and the lake started getting pretty muddy. So I thought my best chance of catching them deep would be in the clear water. It wasn't super clear, so I was still somewhat comfortable being from Louisiana. So I got on Google Earth and I started looking at some drawdown pictures of when the lake was drawn down. Like that lake fluctuates. In 5 days it fluctuated 4 days it fluctuated 9 feet. If it can
Jesus.
fluctuate up 9 feet, it can go down 9 feet. So I found some imagery back in 2013, I think, when they had a drawdown on that lake and some of the bluff walls. I was able to see where some of the bluff walls that weren't like really, really deep, but I could see boulders on the side, on the edges of those walls. That also
Nice.
helped me. That also helped me on those ledges because on some of that same imagery and that same time when I was running up the lake, there wasn't a lot of contour on it. I'll say one thing about this: that lake doesn't have a lot of contour. When I say by contour, it doesn't have a lot of gradual depth changes. It goes from like a foot to or 2 feet to like 17 feet. You didn't find a lot of that sloping bank, but I did whenever I went to Google imagery and saw some underwater rock that, and I'm not I could have saw it with my side imaging, of course, but you have to actually ride that in your boat to see it. In Google imagery, I could cover so much more water just by sitting at my computer and looking at it. So I
Yes.
was able to find some of that sloping bank, and I could find some isolated rock piles that were out of the water. And that's where we caught our fish on day 2 and day 3. Day 1, it was more of staying down by the dam. And, when I decided to go down there, I kind of got lucky right off the bat. I started fishing a bluff wall, and this was the evening before I really dialed into that deeper bite. It was almost at the end of the day, and we could use an Alabama rig. So if you tell me I can use that, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to let somebody beat me with it. So without me using it, so I started using that, and I could cover a lot of water, and I caught some really big smallmouth late that evening. So that's what took me, and I fished a little bit more of it and didn't get many bites. So I went back and looked at that section on Google Imagery, and I could see where there was a ledge about 6 feet down from where we were at, and that's where they were setting. And I just kind of paired that up down on that lower end and found me enough places when I went back the next day. I was able to pattern that, and anywhere they had those bluff walls that had a ledge that came out around 6 to 8 feet down, it came out, and a lot of them do, but these you could actually see on Google imagery. So I was able to run that. Unfortunately, that didn't hold up. I don't know where they went. I don't know where the smallmouth went. um I don't know if maybe it was the clouds, but and I don't fish for smallmouth in South Louisiana. I only fish for them when I go off. So I'm not a smallmouth pro, but I do know that those smallmouth and those upland lakes in the middle part of the United States are very different than the ones up north. They don't mind the cloudy, rainy weather like the ones up north do. They want the sunny, bright, bluebird skies where they can see. They're more sight hunters than these fish down in, like, say, Tennessee, Cherokee, Cumberland, Dale Hollow, where some of the biggest smallmouth live. They don't mind the rain and the wind and even the muddy water, because I caught them in muddy water too. So, but I went over this with you before. One of the biggest things, it's not always one particular big thing that you figure out. It's more of when you go somewhere you've never been, and you have to be super competitive and really not want to lose. But you have to engage yourself and focus and not have anything else on your mind and go all in, because a lot of times when you're out there and you're failing, you're trying this and you fail, you try that and you fail, you try this, you fail, and you feel like you're never going to figure out what's going on with this lake. Every time you fail, you're learning, and I know that's a cliche. And I told you this before. The what I what I would say that's very similar to that is when you were a young kid and you were trying to learn to ride a bicycle, and you were 4 years old and you kept falling, and it probably seemed like you was never going to figure out how to ride a bicycle. Somewhere in that moment, you got back up on that bicycle, and you was the time before you wasn't able to ride it. The next time you were. You didn't just all of a sudden figure it out. You were even at a young age, you were learning. You were learning what to not do. You were learning little balance, how to balance it here, and you may not know that you're doing that. Same way with fishing. You're starting to rule out things, and if you're focused, the smallest thing, like the smallest little things, like a little contour line you see, and all of a sudden you don't know what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you know what you're doing. You figure it out, kind of like riding a bicycle. So I think figuring it out, it's not one big thing. it's a lot of little things that all come together when you're focused, and it's got to be what you want to do. You can't go out half-heartedly, go out and think you're going to figure out how to catch a bass, because I think that is the hardest fish. I know that is the hardest fish in the world to pattern and catch. There's no doubt. Freshwater fish. I just think it takes a lot of effort, a lot of want to, more so than I can pinpoint one thing. I use Google imagery a lot. I do. My buddy Keith, he uses it a lot. I mean, we travel together, and we'll sit around, and we'll go over mapping, and we'll each be looking at things and what we can see, and come together with, and we figure a lot of things out that way, especially especially when the water's low. When you find a drawdown and you see places where there's water in a drawdown, then there's probably some transition, a depth change there. You see a little pool of water somewhere. When there's a drawdown, everything else is dry land, and there's a pool of water there. Well, there's some depth right there, and there's some a transition. Bass are looking for transitions. No matter if it's a transition from deep water to shallow water, from chunk rock to sand, from chunk rock to bluff, um, from a channel swing to a point. You know, whether you're fishing the edge of a grass line to where there's an opening in the grass, that's a transition. That's where fish set up to feed. So when you can find transitions, no matter what they are, um, you increase your opportunity to be successful. That's what I think. I mean, and those are small things too. Like I've been to Chickamauga before. I've been to Lake of the Ozarks before. I've been to Table Rock, and Table Rock is one of the places I really enjoy, because that whole thing is nothing but transitions. I mean, there is bluff, big rock, chunk rock, pebble rock, sand. And when you go there in the spring, those fish are going to be on one of those transitions. And the good thing about it in the springtime is they're constantly moving. They'll move on water temperature. When the water's really cold and they're pre-spawn or in their winter transition, they'll probably be by the bluff wall. And as they begin to transition to like pre-spawn, they start getting on that transition between, chunk rock and a bluff rock. And then as they get ready to spawn, they hit the pea gravel and the sand. So if you find a group of fish, depending on, you can check that one section right there. You can kind of pattern the lake on that one section right there. So I find it a lot easier to figure out than South Louisiana, because South Louisiana isn't about a pattern; it's more about a spot, and
Yeah.
who can find the best little spot here or there. Now there'll be a pattern in that spot. It's always a pattern, but yeah, I mean that's some of my picking my brain on how I go about it. I mean, it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. Um, you know, I- Not a lot of sleep. I don't sleep
Yeah.
well. Most people like me. I'm ADHD. I don't ever stop. Um,
Yeah. Ah,
I'm always going. So, and as long, and I'm 53 right now, so I'm not getting any younger. But as long as I keep my energy up, I'm gonna keep doing it. I mean, I love it. I love the competition.
absolutely. Well, it's about 30 after the hour, man. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do? Any thank yous, any organizations, people, companies, clubs?
Yes, I think I hit one of them, but I can't say enough about Gator Tracks boats. They build the absolute. I have no doubt. I mean, just go by there. I mean, if you've never been by there, go by there and look inside those boats. Look inside of them when they building them. I mean, if it can survive Keith Poche, it can survive anything. I mean,
Yeah.
that's who sponsors Keith Poche. And look, he don't get a new boat every year. He uses the same boat for 2 years. So it goes through him for 2 years. Those little boats that he takes and jumps everything with. I mean, not one cracked well. I mean, 3/16 aluminum from front to back, more bracing than anything. And the big boat, the boat that I run, the Strike Series, it runs 70 miles an hour. I've never taken a wave over the bow. It's the
Wow.
you
Never?
almost it's something about the rake on the boat, that front end of that boat. It just don't fall off the waves like those fiberglass boats do and dive into those waves. I've been in Toledo, I've been in Lake Marpole, Lake Pontchartrain. I've been in some of the worst elements you could ever imagine.
Have you ever
I've
been on
never
Lake Michigan? Like Green Bay?
listen. I've been up there. Those waves are a little bit different than the ones in Lake
They're a
Pontchartrain,
little
Lake
bit closer
Marpole.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little bit different. They're a little bit. If you take your time out there, you're fine. You can be in
Yeah.
Lake Marpole. It don't matter what kind of time you take. You can go under out there. It's just different. It can obviously it gets bigger in Lake Michigan. I know that, but the bigger they get, the more they'll spread out, and the more it turns into like an ocean effect, to where you can ride up and down. Man, Lake Marpole,
Yeah.
those lakes are so shallow and they get rough so fast. I mean, Lake. I mean, it's
Yes.
40 miles across Lake Pontchartrain. You on one side and you got to get to the other, and a thunderstorm breaks up. But anyway, Gator Tracks boats, Kent Saxon, Alan Wall, David Porter. That's three guys out there. I will never own another boat. Put it like that. I've had Phoenix, I've had Bass Cat. Those are great boats. I ain't gonna say anything bad about them. But if you want a boat for a lifetime, one that they have a lifetime warranty on the hull. And I know some other boat
Jeez.
factories do, but I don't expect to ever use mine. I don't expect. That's why they put it on there, because they know
If you
they
can
have the
stand
toughest.
up to Keith Poche and you,
You're right,
wow.
right, right. Also, some of the equipment that I use, all my tournaments. Um, I'm sponsored by Kistler rods, and believe it or not, now Kistler reels. As you can see, the chromium. I was a Shimano guy, but I have to say, they sent them to me. I used them. I couldn't tear them up, so I'm a believer now. I've had these reels for a year and a half, and I haven't torn them up. I can't, not one. They all work flawlessly. This is an 8-to-1 chromium. I have it on a buzz bait, and this is paired with a 7.3 medium heavy helium. And this is the best. And the reason look, I'm at work, so I couldn't bring all my stuff. But the reason I brought this one rod, this is the best all-purpose rod I've ever used. You can see I have a buzz bait on it right now. Delta Lures, 1/4 ounce black buzz bait. I
Delta
also,
Lures.
I also throw a 3/8 to a 3/4 ounce jackhammer chatterbait. I also throw a quarter to a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. I throw big top waters. I
You
throw
throw a quarter
anything
ounce.
under a 1/4 ounce for flipping, casting and flipping, as far as a worm, jig, anything like that. Anything from, like, say, 3/8 and down, it's got a tip on it that lets me cast a jerk bait if I had to.
So that's a
I mean, the
medium
tip
heavy,
is
and
like
you're
super
throwing a
solid.
quarter ounce on that.
Oh, absolutely. You
That's
can,
awesome, dude. That's a good ride.
and it says on here from 1/4 ounce to 3/4. They're not lying. Trey Kistler makes an absolute unbelievable rod, and super sensitive, super light, and also one thing I wanted to say is they have the 20 year anniversary magnesium, and they have them on sale for $75. You buy one, get one free. You can buy two of these phenomenal rods for 150 bucks. That is a giveaway.
Yeah.
That is a giveaway. This is a incredibly light, incredibly sensitive. Um, I can't say enough about the company, because when you call them, you know who you'll get half the time? When you call up Kistler Rods and you got a question about a rod, you know who you're going to talk to?
Fred himself.
You're going to talk to Trey. You're going to talk to Trey Kistler himself. He
Oh,
answers the
great.
phone. He answers the questions.
You know,
So
you can't do that with Daiwa. I
no,
can tell you that.
no,
I
no.
can tell
You
you
can't
that.
do that with Daiwa. You can't do that with Luz. You can't do that with a lot of big companies. They're not a big company, but they're quality. They're God-fearing people. I really appreciate what they've done for me. As much as I break rods and tear stuff up,
Absolutely.
I feel terrible sometimes. I'm like, hey man, I broke 2 more rods. They know I work hard. They know I give all I got, and I'm not gonna let anything get in my way from trying to win. And I do what I can to promote good people and a great product. And Kistler rods is absolutely incredible. This is a sharp looking rod too. I don't know. A lot of people probably know about Kistler. They quit making their magnesium rod probably about 8 years ago. But this is the old. This is the old look to the old magnesium. One of the first Kisslers I had was a telescopic 7'10", and it was a AD. It was called. It was a magnesium. It was a ADPT. It was an acronym. You know what that stood for?
What?
ADPT. All day power tool.
There you go.
That was my favorite rod that I've ever used in my entire life. I mean, I love that rod. And he unfortunately quit making it,
Skip,
and they brought it back. So obviously, I got some.
that's about all
But
the
that's all
time
I
we
got,
have.
bro.
Thank you very much, man. I'd like to thank you, Skip, for taking time out of your busy work schedule for coming and talking to us, man.
No problem, bud. No problem.
I'm going to end the podcast with that, guys. Very special Monday edition. Stick around, Skip. I'd like to talk to you for 2 minutes afterwards.
Okay. Okay, bud.